All right, good afternoon, everybody. Wall Street Jesus here. Tuesday post-game show. Interesting day. A lot of green out there today. Coming off, it wasn't even that big of a pull yesterday, but you could just sense got bears rattled up a bit. The trade war, Trump, no matter what he seems to do, the walking wall of worry will get the job done. And the one bad thing today was that we gapped up a bit and ran. It almost happened too quick. I kind of like one extra day of weakness when we get that type of setup. But again, the trade we've been talking about is still there. Um, it's just in individual names has become a lot more difficult, and we'll go over that quickly. We'll talk about some of the flow. For anybody who's new, um, this webinar we do every day, Tuesday after the market closes. We go over some of the flow that we've been seeing early week, get an idea of where we're at sentiment wise, and things to look for the rest of the week here. All right, and then I'll take some of your questions, whether it's trading related, strategy related, flow related. You can shoot them. We'll save the last part of this webinar all for questions once we go over the action and all that stuff. All right, let me get to what I was doing. I can't do two things at once is the problem. I want to post some of the size action and some of the sweeper activity just so you guys who aren't in the room or on private Twitter get an idea of what we're looking at. Hold on. All right. First of all, let's pull up SPY here. We'll use that as a reference. Okay. All right. So basically, again, if you're not members and you were on the last webinar, I'll use that as a reference last week. We were going over where we were as far as the market as a whole. We talked a little bit about the environment, etc. But a couple key takeaways from a week ago, if you remember, we were in the midst of a little bit of a drawdown, a little bit of a consolidation slash pullback in the overall indices. Underneath the hood, we'll talk about that a little more in depth. There are names out there and groups out there that are literally in bear market and correction. So the markets are kind of deceiving. It's almost, I'm fascinated by how they hold these overall indices together, and really there's not much of a drawdown there. And then a little squeeze, you're back at new highs, and continue to rotate from group to group to group. It's almost like, if you can picture it, because this is how I picture it, I kid you not. It's a bear market tornado, right? And it's spinning, and it'll hit the biotechs for a period of time. Then it'll move from there, it'll go to the banks, and then it'll end up in the strongest group, probably last of them all. But the good thing about a market that does that, it's really difficult to get that sustained drawdown, right? Because think of it logically, there are already names that have been hit, right? So, for example, like you see with Fang, right? They were rushing into Fang, and some of the small cap names, they were tariff proof. Okay, and right now we've been seeing that trade unwind, and it's been the adverse. Okay, Facebook took a nice hickey recently. Netflix, right? So you got some select tech names, the semiconductors, right? You pull up a chart of the Qs, and back in the day, you tell me the Qs are at new highs. What I want to own are the semis. That's where I want to be. That's where you make money in a tech rally. And the semis, some of these semis have been obliterated. So it adds to the confusion of the market. So it's good and bad in a way. It's good that if you're a player of the, ES, SPY, and that sort of thing, the buy the dip trade, buy the high, put the call trade, buy the fear trade has been just money, absolutely money. But if you enjoy playing in, in the individual namespace, and trying to find an edge, in particular names that are maybe under the radar, or groups that money may be starting to rotate into, it's been a lot more, it's been a total different animal, a lot more difficult to say the least. Okay. So that's adding to the confusion here. But let's take the market as a whole first. All right. And just to give you an idea of where we are, again, it all comes down for me, it's sentiment and sweeper activity. Okay. So there's nothing else you're going to get out of me. I don't have an opinion fundamentally. I don't have an opinion on the tariffs. I throw an opinion around on the tariffs, but mostly it lines up with what sentiment's showing me, and that's why I'll, preach a certain thesis or whatever. But that's what it all comes down to. My goal, okay, I don't get there as much as I would like, right? And each and every day, this is what I try to work on. My goal is to be on the opposite side of retail money when they're at an extreme. And I want confirmation that the smart money is taking that other side. That's basically the best case scenario for me. And that's how I approach looking at these markets each and every day. Okay, like I said, not every day you have that type of setup, but that's the ultimate setup for me. So I'm looking to get at least, let's say, I'm in an aggressive mood, and I'm looking to be aggressive. I'm looking to get as close to that example I just mentioned to you as possible. All right. And a lot of times that's going to come out of consolidation or dips where, I'm going to feel most bullish. All right. So we've had a hell of a market from the lows. Okay. Nobody expected us to be back to highs. And each and every time you get a rally like we had here in August, okay, you're going to get the bulls excited. All right. Even the players that were on the fence a little bit, that, go with the flow, they're bullish one day, they're bearish one day, they're bullish. All right. So you're going to see, as far as the short-term indicators are concerned, in regards to sentiment, you're going to see some bubbly on the bullish side. Totally normal. All right. And that's where, as a tactical trader, okay, when you're trading your own account, that's where you want to be looking to take some chips off the table, right? Rolling out, raising stops, whether you're trading options, equities, it doesn't matter. But basically, you're looking to reduce risk. Okay, you don't have to go all in cash, especially if you're looking to catch a larger trend move or whatever the case may be. It's all relative. But for the most part, you really don't want to put on additional risk when you're seeing sentiment flash signals that the retail crowd is feeling good about themselves. All right. And that's basically what we got here off this push. And like I said, for good reason. Real nice push to new highs. In other words, just applying logic, things aren't going to be bearish when you get a move like this in spot and new highs. Okay, so you're going to have sentiment on the bullish side there. So what we look for at that point, okay, so like I said, this is flashback to whether it was last week or the week prior. I lose track of time here, but flashback to the prior webinars, we were talking about how we needed some sort of breather, whether it's sideways chop and Trump working his magic, right? Price action getting a little, volatile, and sucking some of that bullish juice out of the equation, whatever it may be. We need something to just keep the bulls honest. And I think that's been the gasoline behind this bull market going on for as long as it has. And I think, the White House itself is a primary reason for that. This is not, I don't care what anybody says. This is not exuberance. This is not 1999 jubilation going on here. Okay? Every little down day, you get one down day in this market, and people are looking at an Armageddon scenario. You hear it time and time again. Okay? So that in itself, in my opinion, you look at any blow off top, even that led to corrections, there was that feeling of confidence on the bullish side that nothing could go wrong, that the market prices will never go down. Okay. And we kind of had that, if you remember, in January. Okay. We had that Goldilocks scenario, stocks just going up continuously every single day, running through extreme bullish sentiment. Nobody wanted to pay attention to anything that mattered anymore. And then, they get smacked upside the head, and we reset again. Okay. So we haven't gotten to that point yet. Like I said, we do get short-term signals that people, are feeling a little strong. And then we get something like this, where not only does the bullishness, if that's even a term, but you guys know what I'm talking about, that bullish feeling come out of the market on these little pullbacks, it automatically swings to the other side. Okay, where people are looking to take advantage now of potential downside and get lathered up in protection. All right, and that ultimately, from my experience, will set up another move higher. And rinse and repeat, we go on and on again. Okay, so that's where we were. We reached a point where we started to see some bullish signals on some of the short-term indicators, right? The flow started to improve. Moon phases, exactly. The flow started to improve little by little. If you remember, we were talking about how, earnings season was around, and even as the market was pushing the new highs, there wasn't any quality action. Just that appetite, that risk appetite wasn't there. We started to see signs of that coming back in. So again, what we were looking for was all there, and we're pushing higher little by little here on top of today. And ultimately, yesterday, we get a down day. The squeezometer, which a lot of you guys know what it is. If you don't, it's a slang term for one of the short-term sentiment indicators we had. Got close to flashing, again, a buy signal on one day of a pullback. All right. And when we see that, that's where we want to look to at least play. So if we're short-term trading, day trading, like for example, this morning, okay, as a day trader, you want to look to get long of something. You want to look to participate in the rally. Because the rally could have legs, the rally could have some strength to it based on where sentiment's at, as opposed to if we were at extreme bullish sentiment and I wouldn't even be participating in the rally. All right. So again, you guys know the setup. We've gone over it numerous times here. Okay. The one thing I'm hoping for, again, I mentioned rotation. We're seeing a lot of that. All right. So as far as individual names are concerned, that's where things can create a problem and have been. In other words, you can be right on your sentiment analysis, and you can be right on the overall flow being bullish, but you could get stuck in a name, again, examples, Facebook or Twitter or Baba or Chinese name or whatever the case, that doesn't rally with the overall markets. Right? So you were right, but you still didn't make money. And trust me, I've been there and done that so many times. If there's one thing that frustrates the daylights out of me, it's that. Okay. And there's nothing really, there are things you can do to try to avoid it. But when you're playing individual names, you're going to get caught in something like that eventually. All right. And I'll give you an example. Like, for example, if, some of the strength out there. Okay, here, perfect example. All right, we talk about this every webinar. This is Microsoft. All right. You guys know, again, it probably annoys the daylights out of you. The Microsoft trade, we see it with sweeper activity. We've been seeing it every single pullback. Sweepers come in, they start buying the pull, right? And then ultimately you bottom out, markets start to come back, and this Microsoft is at a new high again. All right. Eventually, that trade is not going to be there anymore. All right. Eventually, there's going to be a pullback where Microsoft doesn't head to new highs again, and they rotate out of, let's say, a Microsoft, right? Think about it. Facebook, Netflix, they were all in that category at one point. All right. So as much as you try to avoid it, there's a good chance you're going to get caught in something. And I'm telling you, get caught in a scenario like this. And I'm telling you from experience that you got to try not to get frustrated about it. It's part of the game. It's part of the environment we're in. Okay. Because on the flip side, we could be in a September right now, a September that I'm used to in my career, where everything's getting hit over the head. And some of you who like to maybe play the downside wish that was the case. All right. But rather than that, this is, in my opinion, a correction. We are seeing a correction out there in certain things. And eventually we're going to see a shift from money going into some of these names that just, they can't go any lower anymore. There's going to be some sort of squeeze. Shorts have to cover. Bargain hunters eventually come in, and you at least get some tradable rally there. And where they rotate out of some of these things. We're seeing it already. Some of these names, like a Microsoft, that you could have bought on every dip with action, have run out of steam. We're seeing it already. Okay, not Microsoft in particular, but other names out there. All right. So for me now, what I'm hoping for and looking for out of the action is I'm hoping they go in and get more aggressive on some of the stuff that's been beaten to hell. All right. And not only more aggressive, the best flow as a trader. Okay. If you're looking to trade, the best, if you ask me, Jesus, what's the best type of activity if I'm looking to be a short-term trader? Okay, I'm not tucking stuff away. I'm not day trading. I'm looking to be a tactical swing trader. And a lot of you guys know this already, but you would look for the most aggressive activity in those shorter term, shorter duration strikes, right? So let's say, for example, right now, let's take today. You would look for something in weeklies, bi-weeklies, or October monthlies. Okay, and you want to see them get aggressive on those type of lines. All right, and we haven't seen a lot of that, especially in squeeze candidates. In the names that have been battered, we've seen a lot of leap buying, Jan into next year buying, right? That sort of stuff. And they continue to add as things get cheaper and cheaper. All right, when they play with confidence that something is ready to squeeze now, they're not going to buy Jan and Febs. Okay, when they're looking to take advantage of a squeeze, they're looking to buy, 2 weeks out, some front month stuff. And that's what I'm hoping eventually will come in to a lot of this stuff that's been hammered out there. All right, the one problem, well, there's a couple of problems. We haven't seen enough of that action. We've seen some of it, and it's been the best of action out there, okay? But we haven't seen enough of it. And I think it could be a variety of reasons, but one, maybe they just didn't have the confidence, right? They were looking to buy some blood with some time behind it, knowing they're going to be early, okay? They want to play shorter term stuff, in Microsoft and the stuff that has shown some strength, all right, as far as, action and any new names I'm talking about. And if you think about what's rallied here, okay, let's say Caterpillar. We've seen some sweeper activity in Caterpillar. All right, but we're not gonna, you're not going to see the type of action you would see in a tech name, in a Microsoft, in a cat. You see a half decent size sweep in cat, you like the name, you fire. You rarely are going to see that aggressive Uzi type action come into that type of name. It's possible, but rare. You're not going to see, UTX. We've seen some bullish activity there. But again, you're not going to see that convincing flow where you don't even have to be looking at the name. You can't miss the action. Again, I'll give you the perfect example. ATVI, right? That round of activity, we've seen action in ATVI for a while now. It's nothing new. But if you remember that day of action, for those of you who remember the flow in ATVI, how aggressive it was. How they just continue to come after it like they didn't have enough. And what they come after? They came after September calls. So, they weren't looking to buy ATVI on weakness and they're making a bet on the name, 6 months out, a year out. They were looking for something. They were looking for momentum generated off something. Chatter, news, upgrade, whatever, maybe just buying. But they were looking for short-term momentum to come into the name from somewhere. All right, that's the action I'm talking about. And my point being, the reason I was bringing up the industrial names, that's where the money as a whole, I'm not talking about the flow and options, but that's where the money as a whole has been rotating into. You can see just on the price action. And we're just not going to see that type of action in those names. The defense names, right? We were talking about that today and yesterday in the rooms. Some of these, look at these names. Look at the rip here. And GD, we see a call buyer once in a blue moon. You're not going to see that type of aggressive activity in this. You're just not going to see it. Today we saw, the hell's the name? There were a couple defense names that, catch some flow here and there, and they're decent looking sweeps. Some have some time behind it, but it wasn't ATVI type action where you're going to have that high confidence, that momentum is going to come in from somewhere. That's what it was. Northrop Grumman, whatever the hell it's called. NOC, right? Yeah. And you see the moves here. Okay, now, here's the good news. The good news is you can see we don't want to be chasing this, right? We talk about it all the time. Even if there's a little more upside from here, we don't want to chase this, okay? So we're looking now, we're focusing on where they're going to rotate into next. And again, I'm hoping, there's no indication of it yet, besides some ETF action in some of the Asia type stuff. But I'm hoping it's in stuff that the overseas exposure, Asia, even stuff, European, Brazil, emerging markets that trade here, they get lumped up into a basket and the algos and the machines just sell them aggressively. I'm hoping we get squeeze setups there because that's where we can make a decent amount of money and quick. You know what I mean? And quick. So in other words, you see really aggressive activity. Here's an example, okay? Win. There's buying in Win. There's been buying. They've been early. They've been wrong. There's been decent looking flow out in March of next year. So there's been buying in Win. What we want to see in Win now, okay, if it's ready, we want to see them come in and just annihilate an October strike. Annihilate it. We've seen it before, many a times. Okay. The size buying out in March, okay. It's almost like we've seen enough of it already. We got a good amount of names out there that if you want to build a position and scale into weakness with time, there's no shortage of names out there right now. All right. We want to see them get aggressive playing for a squeeze in these names, and we want to see them playing for the now, right now. So that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm looking for. Because again, I think that's where some exciting stuff can happen. Because these things have been, it's just been relentless selling here, relentless. And you can accidentally, you see what happened in the industrials, and think about this. We talk about tariffs, right? Like the news last night that everybody was worried about was the tariff news and the trade war stuff, but that's the stuff that money's been rotating into. And not just today, guys. Caterpillar didn't find a bottom today. If anything, Caterpillar got extended today, right? And the reason why I'm saying maybe some of these Chinese stuff, and not just Chinese names, but anything that has exposure, like I mentioned, the casinos, the gambling stocks, all that stuff, and gets lumped up into that category. The reason why I'm saying that I have hope that there may be flow coming there is that we are seeing the buying in ETFs, and maybe it will spill over into the rest. Like, for example, EEM has found buyers down here. Okay, this ASHR, you probably remember me mentioning it the last time at this low, where there was sweeper activity, found more buyers. So they're buying some stuff there. A China named Momo, they were buying that yesterday in the past couple of days. Not today. Today they were rolling some of it. All right, so this is not something that just materialized this morning. We were seeing signs of potentially taking place for some over a week now. All right, over a week. And like I said, we use this as an example too, the retail sector. This is the market we're in right now. These things could get scary on the downside. They look like they're going straight to zero. And in 6 months, it can reverse course, be at new highs like nothing ever happened. If you think I'm nuts, look at the retail sector. They had every single company in there destined for zero. There was not a buyer in sight. Couldn't find a bid. Nothing but bleeding. Amazon was going to put them all under. And some of the biggest winners have been out of that retail sector. Some of the biggest squeezes have come out of that retail sector. So that's why it's worth keeping an eye on. And, I know the majority of players out there, they're going to play the Facebook and chase it until they get caught. That's the way they want to play the game. Until they get caught. And then when these things are gone, they're going to scratch their head. They'll be complaining about the market, complaining about chop, because they're not paying attention to 3/4 of the rest of the market out there that may be outperforming. But think about how long that FANG trade, that big tech trade, has been there. It's been there a while. It's been there a long, long time. And that's another thing that keeps me optimistic. You take that trade away, and I don't see any exuberance out there. So could be a possibility. Anyway, so like I said, we've been seeing, for the most part, names like that, some under the radar names. Here's another example, Sony. This is action, even myself, I didn't really pay much attention to. There's literally flow every single day, sweeper activity every single day, and the stock bolts higher. You see, and already, like, I'm getting questions on this. This is what everybody wants to talk about. And, what do you want me to tell you about this? What do you want me to tell you? You want me to try to predict the top in this? Or you want me to tell you It's going up another 300%. What could you possibly expect me to lie to you and say I have an edge in this thing right here? This is, this is a musical chairs, a guessing game. Now, don't get me wrong. Maybe if you're day trading, you could day trade off some sweeps here and there, playing off the momentum. But this is, this is when the music stops type of thing. Besides the options being so junked up that you're behind the 8 ball already playing in this thing on the call and put side. On the call and put side. So, and again, I'm not picking on you guys who threw that symbol out there, but I'm just saying that, when Facebook's not moving or Google's not that hot, they're going to go to this. And usually when they go into this, it's a little too late. They make money, they get caught, and they give it all back and then some. Retail was down since mid-2015 through 2017 before the recent move. What sector do you see in a similar downtrend with potential recovery? Again, I'm just saying that there is a portion, a good chunk of the market that has been, I'm trying to think of the best word for it, hasn't been appreciated, has been ignored, has been neglected. Okay? No matter, it doesn't matter the group. It doesn't matter. Again, the industrials were the last example of that. The problem is with the industrials, I just explained to you, the flow there very rarely is going to be something where you're going to get excited over. Like the one time we saw these names catch big time action was after the Trump election. That's when they caught action. Here's another example. Anybody in this group? The rails? Anybody own any choo-choo trains? NSC, ridiculous action, ridiculous. UNP, that caught upgrade today, popped again. And this didn't just start up either. You could see a lot of chop here. You know what I mean? After a big rally. And then just when you ignore these things, that's when they seem to take off when nobody's interested. Yeah, KSU, what a pain in the rear end. That's always been a pain, a real pain, right, Stephen, the stock? And I mean, it's higher, right? It's going higher, but it sure doesn't feel like it compared to the other one, the other couple ones, right? I don't know what it is. They blame NAFTA. When Trump got elected, they were blaming Mexico ties. That's why. There's always an excuse. Always an excuse. Another group. Okay? And listen, if the rails, you weren't sold on it, blah, 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 you passed fine. Here's a group that it was there. It was there. The flow was right in front of every single one of us. And just recently, they gave you one last shot to get a trade out of it. Anybody have any idea what I'm talking about? A group that we have made money in the past. It's been a decent group off flow that really got out of favor, probably because of the tariffs and all that stuff. The cruisers. RCL, CCL tag team. And this is what I mean. Whoever Joe or whoever asked that question, this is what I'm talking about. Okay? I'm using the example retail because retail to me was as bad as it could possibly get. Okay, so they don't all have to look like retail. I hope not. They don't end up looking like it. But I'm just giving the example of how bad retail looked at that one juncture. We were seeing flow come into the retail names, okay? And there was, the street just didn't care, right? Macy's, and this is what I'm talking about, Joe. I'm not talking about buying back here and all that. We were seeing buyers come into this Macy's, into this downdraft here. They were early, they were underwater. They've most likely lost money and had to roll out for more time. Okay, but eventually they found the bottom and it was a pretty decent sized squeeze there. Ulta, another one. You know, the leaders are probably the most important to pay attention to, like a Costco, which is at new highs. Okay, Lulu, yoga pants, they're a fad. Okay, even Coors, right? That got beat up. So that's the point I'm trying to make. That's the point I'm trying to make. Now, if money's going to start rotating out of tech little by little, they may find a home in some groups that we're ignoring flow in. Okay, and let me give you an example of this CCL. Okay, again, if you're in the room private Twitter, you know what I'm talking about. If not, take my word for it. CCL, they started buying this thing probably, honestly, where the RCL, let me see, the RCL was catching early enough here. They were definitely early. I don't know exactly when, but they had to be underwater in RCL on some of that call buying with time. They had to be. Okay. So let's just say they were buying here, or whatever the case may be. Off a legitimate pull, right? Other than that, the stock, yeah, these things were as strong as all hell. Little correction. This is a legitimate correction in a strong name. Finds a bottom. There was that longer term flow trying to pick a bottom, piecing in. And then, just recently, we start to see aggressive activity in, again, those shorter term strikes. And the CCL was actually a nice laggard, into here. And look what you got here. And mind you, this rallies in a market where something's got hit over the head, especially yesterday. All right, and aggressive activity too. So that was a group right there. Now again, we're not interested in chasing this move now. If this thing finds a way to consolidate, dips, does its thing, and they come after it again, you got another shot at it. Trying to think of some names. Well, you got this STZ. They're going out to January, but you got some shorter term flow there. STZ, same thing. You guys probably remember this name. Remember this? They bought this dip back in February, that in the market panic attack, big time size. And then caught a nice snapback rally to new highs. So they bought into the lows of the acquisition news, the investment news. They pumped a couple $2 billion into some weed company, CGC. And you got a little pullback here that they're been coming back to buying into. Dharma saying caught a double on STZ. Yeah. Well, that's, again, if you miss that entry, or you're looking for a re-entry, you got a little bit of a pull there now if you're interested. If not, you may have caught the double Dharmesh and you're happy with it and you're moving on, looking for other stuff. Joey's got a great question in regards to software, which has been, just an unbelievable sector. Whether there's more juice there. And there's no way of knowing, Joe. There's no way of knowing. All I know is it's not early there. We know that, right? We know that because you've been making money on those stocks. You've probably been buying CRM on every single dip possible. So we know it's not the start of a move, right? We know it's second half stage no matter what. So that's where it gets tricky. That's where it gets tricky. And for me, it's kind of like the Microsoft. All right. I love Microsoft. How could you not? The thing's been money off sweeper activity on every dip, like we said. But I have the confidence to buy, let's say, off sweeper activity on a dip and sell the rip. But the problem is, unless we get that chase, and that's a possibility, unless we get that chase, which will end up resulting in a blow off top, and that will be the end. You know what I mean? It's hard to say, I'm going to buy it here and hold for another move like this. Is it possible? Of course it is. But, the odds aren't in your favor. Aren't in your favor. I see somebody talking about like a square. Yeah, the same thing applies. Now, I could have said that, and I probably did here. I could have said that all along this chart. But I'd feel better if these things would have, somewhat that resembles a correction. You know what I mean? Something that resembles a correction or a shakeout or something at least like this. And if you remember, that's where, I don't know if you guys were around, where was this, but that's where Square caught some of the best action. I remember it like it was yesterday. July 55s. How about that? Off the top of my head, I remember it like it was yesterday. Right into this. Okay? What month is that? April and May. July 55s. So here was July, and the stock was roughly 50, under 50. That's where the action was most aggressive. And you had a little bit of a pullback. People weren't as bullish. So, up here now you can't feel the same way off activity up here unless we get some sort of breather like that. At the least. And if you think it's not possible, trust me, it's possible. Okay? The machine caught a nice little haircut here. And this is the machine right here we're talking about. Those names, they needed it, right? They needed it. Facebook, Netflix, they needed it. And who knows, Netflix could be setting up all over again. Would it shock me? Would it shock any of you? This thing's at new highs and a whole new bull trend later in the year, if not in a month from now. So anyway, all right, but that's why I guess. And the thing is, Joe, it depends, what type of trader you are. That's the other thing. If you're looking to be tactical, right? If you're looking just for trades, I think it's worth every single time trying to buy that dip in Microsoft, especially when you see sweeper activity. And when you catch the rip or back to new highs or test highs, you're locking that in. I think you continuously you should look to do that if that's something you are good at and feel comfortable with. That's something you like, the style you like to trade. I think you milk that till it's done. Those are the best trades. You're not going to get filthy rich off them, but they're nice trades. CRM, another one, goes right into that camp. But I think the traders, the players that get in trouble are the ones that are looking to buy these things up here and expecting to see a rally similar to what they already saw. That in these names. So so what here's the let me go to the things here so we could talk. I see some of you guys talking about the action. And then we'll go to some of the questions. Yeah, so we saw some put action. I'll get to that. if you're managing money right now and you're long, and trust me, from that reading on hedge funds that we've been talking about, you guys know what I'm talking about, that hedge fund exposure. If you need to get aggressive here and end up chasing, you are out of your mind if you're not putting on some sort of SPY protection or Qs, or protection in the Qs. If you're worrying right now about a potential, rotation out of tech and into maybe more defensive areas or stuff that, emerging market stuff and that sort of thing, you're nuts if you're not putting on some QQQ protection on a day like this. And that's what we're seeing, in my opinion. Even more so because September, all that September protection is expiring. You got monthly expiration. So if your protection's expiring, you got to replace it. To replace it, you got to buy puts. And I think that's what we're seeing in the ETF stuff. I don't think it's a prediction. I don't think it's a prediction on what the market's going to do. And that's the thing. You predicting these markets. The smartest money out there. Like these hedge fund guys, they know this game. Everybody, we talk bad about these hedge funds like they're dumb people when it comes to this game. They're some of the smartest minds out there. And they can't figure this stuff out. So I think a lot of the ETF stuff, especially in bull markets on the put side, the majority of it, they're looking to protect. You heard Tepper. They reduce exposure. They buy SPY puts to cut down their exposure. They're not necessarily betting with confidence on a downside move. Let me get to this here. So I wouldn't pay attention to that. You heard me say in the past, I think the call activity tells you more about the climate of the market than anything else. All right. You're looking for the quality action. If the quality action is going into, let's say, the banks, the market maybe pulls back, but maybe the banks push higher. Maybe the banks outperform. You want to see the quality order flow. If there's no quality buying out there, if they're not aggressively putting their money to work somewhere, that's when I get a bit concerned. That's where I get a bit concerned. So here's some of the sweeper activity today. That's just sweepers, by the way. This GGB, that's a Brazilian steel name that caught some action at the open. Bank of America caught some action, but you can see here some of this cheap stuff moving around, nothing really significant. ETE, an energy name. If you guys remember, ETP was a name they bought similar to this, gobbled it up, and scored on it. And they've been buying this ETE pretty aggressively. Mostly Jan calls. Today looks like some December. WDC caught some action. You got Micron reporting. I think WDC, did they report? I think they reported now. No, they still got a report, right? So you want to see more than that in WDC. What else? MLCO, another casino name there that is trying to bottom. And that's, these Macau names destroyed. They got a little bit of a lift off the lows there in MLCO. Look at this. It's a nice little beating. So a little bit of buying there. What they buy? Let's see. You want to see them get a hell of a lot more aggressive in that MLCO. She can catch a lot of size. That's a little peanut bet for that name. Energy names, all right? It hasn't been that all-out flow in the energy space, but some selective names catching some decent flow, okay? Here's a name, I heard of, I never played it before, I never seen really any noteworthy action in. AR. They've been buying the daylights out of this thing every single day for the past 4 or 5 days. If you follow the flow on a day-to-day basis, you couldn't have missed it, right? I'm not talking about one order here and there. They've been buying the living daylights out of this thing. Oh, it's an energy name. That's about the extent of it. I don't know much more than that. So selectively, they've been buying some energy stuff. This one, another one, they love to go to HES on every dip. Every pullback like this, you will see has catch sweeper activity and always a tradable bounce. What else? BHGE. They've been buying a little bit of that. I think caught a put seller today. Nothing huge, but some put selling. I'm looking for action. This thing's been breathing. Little pop today. CRC. That name was one of their biggest winners. Then you had a nice pull. They hit it after earnings and caught a nice rip. Now breathing off that rip. So maybe she hangs out here and catches. She can catch some good-looking action. CRC. Anybody playing the energy stuff of recently? Any recent flow in energy or any energy names that they rig? Yeah. The best looking action in rig has been in leaps. But yeah, there's been some rig action. There's definitely been some rig action. VKTX, George, if you're mentioning it, that means you caught it. Did you catch it? Oops. Did you catch the VK? What VK? Oh, TX. I'm in the wrong thing. Who caught the VKTX? I know George probably did if he's mentioning it. Yeah, but this, listen, even though this thing caught legitimate action, right? It's one of these biotechs you're rolling the dice on. So I'm going to give Flow credit, but because it's one of these biotechs, I can't give it too much credit. Yeah, there's been some solid action for a little biotech, some solid action. Here's another name. From $1.70, they started buying it. TRXC. If you follow me on Twitter, you don't even have to be a member. The amount of action I posted in this thing. But again, this is old stuff now. This is old stuff we're talking about. I'm talking about, this is spilled milk. I'm trying to focus on some of the newer action we're seeing here. And maybe try to catch some new names, new rallies. Yeah, IBB got pretty, off this pull here. What's funny, Joe, into the highs, IBB was hot, meaning was too bullish on the sentiment side. And it didn't quite get there, but was close. But you had a rally there today. The reason why I posted that chart is just in case we had some weakness. That might have been, if you were interested in biotechs, that might have been a half decent entry. So yeah, and that's another thing, right? IBB was hot, then cooled off, but meanwhile, healthcare has been on fire. J&J machine. Look at this. Yeah, so this is my point. And trust me, I'm the same way. That's why it's easy for me to preach to you guys. You understand? That's every game in life. Sports. It's easy for me to tell you what to keep an eye out for. But even myself, I can't do it as much as I like. It's difficult. But if I can remind you and give you a heads up on these things to pay attention to these things, because most people aren't, and this is what happens when You don't. Maybe one or two of you will happen to just by accident stumble upon these things. But look, J&J, beast, absolute beast. Pfizer, the flow quiet down there now, but there was some decent flow in Pfizer. It quiet down. Merck, now they're chewing on Jans in Merck. But again, these are all, you don't want to buy these things now. This is, again, another group quietly they were rotating into, and not many people were paying attention. One name, though, might still be around, Celgene. But you know what? Leaps, primarily. The size is in Leaps. They play some cheaper stuff, too. But some flow coming into this Celgene dip. You got a little niner there, too. Make you feel a little bit better about things. CVS, I haven't seen anything noteworthy. We saw a couple sweeps. When was it? Yesterday or the other day, there was some news in the group, but of late, nothing huge. I would just say some bull flow, and maybe that's what you're talking about, St. Joe. Some of the more recent smaller flow. Now, isn't this St. Joe? Isn't this another group? Isn't this another group? Like, this group was left for dead. You don't want to touch these things. You didn't want to touch these things. They were awful. Awful. They were awful. First Solar, cheap action there today. I saw it had quite the rip. Nice little squeeze. But First Solar, I know the type of action it can catch. And that's what I like to play off of. It was spec action today. Maybe it hangs out down here, this First Solar, James, and catches some decent size action. I would like that. You know what I mean? Maybe this rally fails, shakes out. Whoever thought there might be a squeeze there, and then we see a couple of nice size sweeps come in. And this is what I'm talking about, what I was talking about earlier. You got a decent amount of names that look like this. A decent amount of names. I mean, this is correction. This is bear market. Whatever bearish label you want to pull on it, this is not doing that any justice. And it's not one name or one group. There's a good chunk of the market out there. There's a good chunk of the market out there like that. UNM. I do not know that one. What's that? UNM. UNM. Maybe I do. I'm drawing blanks. What type of stock is this? UNM. No, I didn't see any action that caught my insurance. That's another sector I tend to ignore from time to time. I saw somebody mention the banks. Yeah, they're tough. They're tough. I mean, if you see action there, you like a bank like J.P. Morgan, you got a niner there off a little breather. Here's the point I was making about the banks, okay? J.P. Morgan, if you did the right thing, a lot of us missed this opportunity, okay? You had sentiment perfectly lined up. You had some flow come in, and you had earnings right smack in the way, okay? And then right after earnings, you got that rip. If you missed that, and you did the right thing and not chase here, this is what you were looking for now. Now you want to pay attention to the flow in JP Morgan. We're seeing some bull flow there. If you like it already, you fire already. But this is why, at the least, you don't want to chase that move. Because if you're buying calls, which a lot of you do, this eats you up for breakfast. The stock barely even came in, and you lost everything. So now you got some nice consolidation. They threw a nice little 9 there for good measure. God forbid we see some aggressive activity come into JP Morgan, you got a half decent setup there. You got a half decent setup. Again, there's been some flow in JP Morgan, but nothing. You always want more, but nothing to get totally excited about. Citigroup, quote, one of the better bets of the bunch, but she's also been a laggard, so maybe that's the reason. You know, looks different than JP Morgan. What else? There was another group of names I wanted to mention to you, or some of the action. I'm drawing blanks here. Bank of America. I think Bank of America flashed in liner today. Let me see. Yeah. See, but you see when they get messy like this is a nice rip. You see here, you got a red 9 off this little messy rally. So I guess it depends what you're looking for. But there's, you got, my point of what I was making here is you don't want to chase this, and you got that little breather if you were waiting for that. Yeah, CMI, again, one of those names that doesn't catch a ton of action, but has seen a little bit of action here. That's Cummins, right? Cummins. Okay, post-election, we saw some decent looking order flow in this name, but since then they've been quiet. Maybe they show up at a different point. But there's been some bull flow. There's definitely been some bull flow. Good call, Disney. A couple guys already took a shot at it because they like the setup. Disney yesterday, was it yesterday? Or I think it was yesterday. Yesterday caught some sweeper activity. Okay. Today I thought they were going to come in and add to it. They came in late afternoon and did small. I thought there was a chance they'd get aggressive with it. But this is another one of those candidates. Off a nice little pull here. You got some action already if you like the setup. If you don't, and you want to be convinced by the flow, they can get aggressive in this name. We saw it before, remember? Now, this is not the easiest name to trade, as we all know, but we've seen how they can buy this. They can get aggressive in this thing. So Disney, if you're not in it yet and you're waiting on more flows confirmation, you keep an eye on action here. You see another round ahead, some decent sweeper activity. And you're all set up there if you're interested in the name. Roku, Roku's gone. Roku's gone. Again, example, just what I'm talking about, so you guys don't think I just bash the names you like to trade. Roku, hot IPO, look, right? Totally normal. People calling for the death of Roku. Netflix is going to put them out of business. This is doing this. This is doing that. And then all of a sudden, you get some good-looking sweeper activity that comes in when nobody wants it, and then they come in with more, and then they come in with more, and then they come in with more, and then you get a bigger move than you ever thought possible. A lot of us are never around to see half that move, but that's the point I'm trying to make. On those hot names, this is a legitimate correction in the name. Another name is this IQ. Now, this is a China play. What the hell? Where does this line come from? That's a nice line anyway. IQ, similar to Roku, looks exactly the same to me. No? Am I seeing doubles? It looks exactly the same. IQ, hot IPO, caught action as soon as they started trading options. The thing went parabolic. And when you see a move like this has to happen. It's only a matter of when. Maybe it happens at higher levels, but something like this has to eventually happen. Okay, and now you got that. All right. When's the lockup period? That's interesting too, because it's an IPO. You got to pay attention to that stuff. But like for example, today, I really wanted to see aggressive IQ next week. Interesting. I really wanted to see aggressive sweeper activity in IQ because it's a lock for a trade every time. You guys know IQ caught sweeper activity back here. You got a real nice rip. It caught sweeper activity over here. You got a 2-day rip, more than enough. So I want to see action even just for that right now. I'm not even talking, missiles here. I'm talking about just that aggressive activity where they accumulate throughout a morning. And I think you got a nice another set of squeeze if they show up. Today there was a little December nibbling. That's not going to get it done. Again, we want to see the shorter term strikes, but not just a 500 lot sweep. You want to see that appetite for risk, one after the other, and the more these things trade, the more you're going to see. Like AR, when you see action like that, it's noteworthy because this name doesn't catch any action. IQ is an active name. When they want it, we all saw, we've seen it in the past. Sweepers go nuts. They go nuts. So yeah, maybe St. Joe brings up a good point. Maybe they're going to wait after the lockup next week. Possible. But I want to see some action confirmed one way or the other. Brazil, it goes into the category, I think, with the emerging markets and China and all that stuff, Valerie. Even though PAGs, I don't know if you're talking about PAGs or you're talking about EWZ, but the PAGs looks like it's found the bottom. I don't want to jinx it. Does look like it's nailing out a bottom here. But yeah, these things have been under a lot of selling pressure. Again, I'm hopeful that the Chinese ETF action, I shouldn't say Chinese because it wasn't just Chinese, Asian ETF action. Yeah, GGB was the cheap steel name that caught action today from Brazil. Yeah, Japan, it was DXJ. Look at that rip. Jesus. Look at that squeeze. Yeah, that's a squeeze right there, no? That's a squeeze. So yeah, that caught a little more action in EWJ, which is a Japan ETF, caught action as well. You know what else? Here's another name. RSX has been squeezing. Okay, you can see here. And again, this is all happening before today. This is not just today. Here's a name I think if that selling gets lifted in these things can explode. Yandanks. Every time this thing seems to muster up some momentum, there's that overseas selling wave that comes in and buries them all. But again, you can see they're trying to find bottoms here. You know what I mean? They're absorbing some of this selling. They're coming right back. The call buying is still there. There's Yandanks, especially with time. They've been loading up in leaps. I think they came in a little bit closer recently, October's. So worth keeping an eye on. YNDX. It reminds me of the last time this thing was like this. That was back here. This couldn't get out of its own way. And then actually that call buying was a lot better timed. It came in literally right at the end of the consolidation and exploded. So, here's the point of today's webinar. We need to pay attention, especially if you can trade them, to the flow in spots we normally would ignore. That's what I think the moral of the story here is today. Whether you trade that particular name or not, it could be clues on the group. There may be a more liquid name in the group you like. But I think we need to pay more attention because the setup is too good to ignore in some of these things. It's not long in the tooth, unlike a lot of this market out there. Right? It's not. They're all, a lot of them are still in sell mode, but the chunk of them are in some sort of consolidation. Steel, if you remember, X was similar. Remember X? You guys remember that X. Remember how tough of a trade that was? Where was that selling in X? That was back here, right? Look at this. Remember we saw call buyers. I don't even know if it was that. Was it that? What year is this? 2000. It must have been this. But I think call buying, started coming in off this gap and just continued to sell, rally, sell. This doesn't even do it justice. A lot of you guys who are members of the Steam Room remember X. You guys remember this, how tough it was. Right? Rally, they sell it off. It would go green, close red. Rally, sell it off. Felt like the sun would never come out again. So that's the point of the whole story here. All right. Aside from that, on the sentiment front, we didn't close all too bad. One, we had a little bit of selling at the end of the session, and to be honest, if you can make this out, let me put up a daily here. You can see what I'm talking about. Valerie's saying, I have a question. How to plan for your trading when you know you'll be on vacation? Vacation. What's a vacation? Vacation. I'm kidding. Yeah, Valerie, I would probably, if you're going away and you're going to be in Asia, I probably would stay predominantly in cash. Unless you got stuff with a decent amount of time and, your stop loss is 0 on those positions on the call side. You understand? If you're holding anything with time, make sure whatever's in, you're willing to lose. But the problem is, even if you get a rally, knowing your luck, right? You'll get a nice rally and you can't even sell it. So I wouldn't see like something like that. If you're in this game for the long run, enjoy your vacation. The market's going to be here when you get back. No matter, even if you miss some decent opportunities, you're gonna longer term, you're not even going to remember that period. So don't bury yourself over it. It's not worth it. That's all you need. You come back from a nice vacation and you're wiped out. Now, how are you going to feel about that? So don't even sweat it. Minimal exposure. Yeah, without a doubt. What was I saying here? Oh, so the sentiment wasn't as bad as you might think it was today. Squeezometer, for example, we almost got a green signal yesterday. We closed, last I seen, a little over neutral. Okay, so I still think weakness is the opportunity out there. The buying that comes into weakness will be telling. Okay, that's where, again, I'm just using examples. All right, like the CCL. Okay, that action came in when the market didn't look that hot. You know, that's where some of the better action comes in. You know, so any weakness, I think weakness is the opportunity no matter what. Whether you're playing the strong momentum names, you want to buy them on pulls like Microsoft, like we've been saying, even Apple and stuff like that. But overall, the days the market isn't rallying significantly, I think the names they buy are the names to pay attention to on those particular days. Whatever names they're buying, that's the stuff you really need to pay attention to. All right, because on days like this, you're going to see call buying for the most part, no matter what. People chase and all that stuff. I see somebody asking about the hedge funds. Yeah, last I seen, I think it's a 2 day lag on the indicator. But outside of today, and I didn't see any crazy chase sweeper activity out there to tell me otherwise. The hedge funds still lack exposure in this market. So the chance of that chase is still out there and a decent possibility of it, if you can believe that. Those of you who are members know we went over it on the webinar. But if you haven't, if you weren't there or you're not a member, basically what we're talking about, hedge funds as a whole have been net sellers throughout this rally and currently have minimal exposure on the long side. And you hear it, guys. We hear it every day. We see it in the price action, but we hear it every day. You heard it from David Tepper himself. He's underweight, right? Every single guy you hear who runs a hedge fund is underweight equities. So the risk, if this market starts to creep away from them, you're going to see that chase that Paul Tudor Jones was talking about. And we're going to see it in the flow. You're going to see flow explode. All right. And Joey, if you're out there, that's if you're hoping to get lucky on this Microsoft for more than just a trade, that's what you got your fingers crossed for. Because that's definitely a name they're going to have to chase. So that's what you're looking for. All right. Any last questions before we wrap it up here? Did I get to everybody's question? If not, you know where to find me. I try to DeMark. No, it's not proprietary. These are, if you go to, this is TradingView. So if you go to indicators, right? This is what I recommend you do. Go to indicators, and you got this public library here. If you type in Tom DeMark, right? Or you type in TD, because it's TD sequential. Some of them are locked, but you got a ton of them that aren't. And just, pick whichever one is easier on the eyes for you. You know what I mean? It's a preference thing. Yeah, some people I know just want to know the Niners. Me personally, I like the numbers there to see where I'm at. But that's just go to indicators and public library, and you type in DeMark, Tom DeMark, anything will come up. All right, BW? All right, so, and any questions, if anybody has any questions, if you're new, most of you guys are on this webinar and are members anyway, but even if you're a new member, I suggest you do this. You go to wallstreetjesus.com, you click on strategy, all right, and quick, easy to read blogs on some of the basics, but some of the stuff that you guys have questions about, that you'll find the answers here. You know, different trading styles off of flow, using flow for sentiment purposes, the logistics behind a sweep, all that stuff. Using it as a momentum indicator, trade examples on how to use it as a momentum indicator. So they're quick, easy to read blogs. I think, was there 2 pages? Yeah, a couple pages, if that. And I'll answer a lot of your questions. All right. And if anybody's interested, if you're new, to checking out the Steam Room, you hear that? The Steam Room is this, by the way. All right. It's the trading room, real time flow, audio, video with the flow coming in there. If you're interested, you go to wallstreetjesus.com. It's right there. You get a free 3-day trial, no credit card. All right, 3 days. And then you got that per month. And if you're interested in private Twitter only, it's under the products tab. Private Twitter. And for $59.99 a month, you get all the private Twitter feed. All right, guys, always a pleasure. All right, keep a close eye on the flow, especially in the names that you're usually not interested in. And hopefully we get some aggressive squeeze type action there. That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see what happens. All right, thanks, everybody. Enjoy the night.